So I'm jumping into this video a little early to kind of give an update on everything in general. So fortunately, I lost a bunch of footage on my camera. Um, I have this. To me, it's a nice camera. It's a Sony A6400, I believe. So it's a pretty decent camera. And a few lenses I use for it, just for doing basic stuff for me, my family, and then of course the car. I have, those are pretty expensive SD cards, and unfortunately it got corrupt. And the card's not bad, but for some reason, something happened with it, and the files were unreadable. And I'm an IT guy, so I was able to try and do some recovery stuff with it, and I got some of the stuff back. So this video that you'll see coming forward will be the last of the good footage that I had about the car, and then after this video it's gonna jump far as far as time goes, and then I'll have little pieces that I can kind of cover in there. But I just wanted to put this together so it kind of made some understanding. This next video, I guess, will be like a two-part. I kind of do like your basic stuff that you would cover, and then the second part of the video kind of recaps it again, but I go into some other details about the car. I'm documenting my process. Right, wrong, I did it right, I did it wrong, I don't know, I'm just documenting it, right? We can talk about it later. We can improve upon it, things like that. So at this moment, I mean, I'm probably a month behind in the video or so. So as you're talking to me right now, I already have 500 miles on the car. Everything's been great. I do want to at least update that because I've been putting up a bunch of videos out, and I don't have any other way of updating. I guess maybe I do Instagram or something like that, I guess, so people can always be on top of things in real time. But I do have 500 miles on the car. It's great. I just did the second big oil change. No issues. I'm just driving it to get to about 1,000 miles, and that's when I can supposedly start putting the boost on. I'm excited. So yeah, I'll keep dropping the videos out, and I call them day 1, day 2, day 3 and stuff, but it's more just like trying to keep it, within 15 to 20 minutes for the video, and not overload everybody with a bunch of stuff. So enjoy the rest, and if there's any questions or anything, just put them in the comments, and we'll talk about things, and we'll go from there. Thanks. Come on, guys. So I jumped ahead a lot. I got a little excited. Kind of forgot to record a little bit, but engine's in the car. Everything is put together. It's a pretty standard install when it comes to a Subaru, so I'll just go over the few basics, to kind of touch base on everything and get you caught up. So as you can see, we have a Subaru engine installed with a front mount intercooler setup. Again, that's pretty standard for most people. So my previous videos kind of showed that whole process. The only thing I want to kind of cover, and excuse my voice and my breathing and all this nonsense, I have an upper respiratory infection that I'm getting over. Not COVID. All this nonsense, and I never got COVID once, but I get sick with a basic cold, like you would call it. But here we go. So everything's pretty normal here. I had to do a few changes. This upper coolant reservoir, the Killer B, my cable was a little too short, so I had to go out and buy a brass barb coupler. So this is the ghetto look situation for the moment, and I have this piece of rubber protecting it because the metal will scrape on the intake. So that's something that's there. I had to change. Back here, let me get you guys a light. Where the fuck is it? Yeah. So back here, if you see this guy right there, that steel tube, I had to rotate that backwards. That usually would go over the top of the intake or the turbo. But in this case, I had to route it around back, as you can see. Just follow that black tube, and it goes underneath the AOS. So it kind of does an S-bend to there. So that's the feed for the AOS coolant, and then it returns back up here. So that I had to change a little bit, not a big deal. I want to put some kind of protection on that hose though, because I don't want it to get hot. And I just noticed that hose is touching the exhaust manifold, so I gotta pick that up as well. Exhaust manifold, downpipe. What else? So that's pretty much it as far as everything goes. I did make a boo-boo. Ignore this nasty ass battery. It's been sitting
in the garage for a while, but I'm using it to kind of crank the engine and prime it. I did have a boo-boo. This black hose. Hold on, I'm messing with the camera. What the hell was this black wire? I hooked it up to negative when it's supposed to be a positive. This is like your main feed wire for all your everything electronic. So I was like, why does not the car turn on? But yeah, don't forget this battery is a positive wire. Zoomy zoomy. Not a negative one. So that was everything. This was open because I was checking out a few different things to make sure it's good. Yeah, everything else is going good. I did forget to hook up the wire for the starter to actually make the starter start. So that was another dummy thing I did. But besides that, everything is good. So let's get to the bad so far, because there's been a few. First bad, it's kind of hard to see with all these lovely Subaru hoses you get stuck with everywhere. God, I can't wait till I can clean all this up proper. But your main coolant feed that comes out of the head and basically sees up into the turbo to start the whole process of feeding the coolant on these accessory things. I forgot to actually fill that or put that together. So when I started filling the coolant system, we'd lost some coolant. So that's the first time I lost some coolant. Number two coolant, which I actually just found out. Where did I put that darn guy? Here it is. This guy right here. This is one of the hoses. Maybe you're gonna do it there. This is one of the hoses that goes and feeds the heater core, or there's a return or feeds the heater core. So it's basically behind the timing system, and it does a J from feeding up and then feeding into the side of the water pump. Well, this little shit stain here, somehow I missed it. Let me see if I can actually get this to focus. See that? That is a slit in the hose. I missed that slit. How in the hell did I miss that? I don't know. Maybe I cut it. Maybe I did something to it. It looks... I can't tell, but this was causing another leak. Well, let me tell you what. This is a pain in the ass hose to try and get back into the area. So this will be a nice fight. And I just doused myself in coolant. And I have coolant all over the floor. It's everywhere. I lost a bunch of it. I gotta buy more gallons of this Subaru stuff. It's 26 bucks a freaking gallon. Expensive. So I gotta buy more to fill all this up. So I wanted to catch you guys up. Everything looks good as far as here. ECU's good. I've updated the firmware, and now I have to go through and check everything because there's a bunch of changes since I last did it. So it looks ugly in here for now. I did crank the engine over a few times, and I have an electronic oil pump, or oil pressure gauge. I don't trust it. So I went to old trusty AutoZone, and I picked me up a cheapo depot manual with the hose. There's a hose right there. A manual oil pressure, so I can actually read this. I'll trust this way more now than I will electronic one. So I'll do that. Oh, and rare. I'm going crazy today. You need some synthetic ATF. This is for your power steering. Make sure it's Dextron 3. This is what everybody recommends, Mobile 1 synthetic ATF. When you read the actual old school thing, it does say use ATF Dextron as fluid. Feel the proper level. So don't forget to do that. I'm out of breath already, man. This sickness is crazy. So that's it. That's where I'm at. I'm gonna fix that hose. Fill the coolant with what I have. Probably have to wait and buy some more. My map sensor, which I tried to ghetto up the stock one just so I can at least get the car started. That comes in tomorrow because of the delay of the storm that's going up there in the north. So I might as well just wait and put this on hold. So I'll stop from here. I'll fix that hose, tidy things back up, and call it a day for now, and we'll go from there. So I'll catch you guys back up later.
It's about that time. So a lot's going on since I got the engine in the car, and I know I gotta explain all that. So let me start off with telling you what's going on first. So don't mind my voice. I have COVID. I think in the previous video that I'll put up, that I'll attach before this one, I'll kind of explain that. But I thought I had upper respiratory infection,
and come to find out, it actually was COVID. So although I have like no symptoms, I'm pretty good. So no symptoms or anything. I'm pretty normal as far as it goes. To me, it's a basic common cold. So I don't really have too many issues. Just my voice is a little hoarse from coughing and stuff like that. But I'm good. So let's get to the car. That's the most important. Like I said, I've been sick a little bit, so I've been doing things here and there and haven't been recording. And like I said in my last video, my buddy's been finishing up his bike. But let me run down exactly where I'm at now and catch you guys up. So as you can see, the engine's in the car. That's pretty standard for most Subarus. I really don't need to show all that. Just get the engine in the car. It was as simple as that. Everything's hooked up. I mean, and when I say everything, I mean this car is already turned over. We'll get to that in a second. But IAG AOS is hooked up. Turbo's in. Hose is crushed all to hell, so who knows how much boost I'll actually make with that thing. One downside I didn't like is my ETS cold air intake. It kind of sits out more like this, but because of the angle that this thing pushes in because of the power steering, there's not much grip that this has, especially here where this is actually supposed to bolt there. You can tell I had to pull it out just to make it fit here. So I'm going to have to come up with another solution for this, but this is just the intake. There's no pressure or anything going on, so I'm not too worried about it for now, and I'm not making boost for now. So we'll kind of just leave it ghetto style like that. Yep, power steering lines kind of ran kind of a little funky, not a big deal. Gross battery, ignore that. That's just because it's the big battery for doing all the stuff I did. Everything else looks fine. I did hook up a cheapo $25 oil, mechanical oil pressure unit thingy in that stock location up there, that galley plug. So I took off the my electronic one because I wanted something that gave me something authentic, you know, and $25 pump or sensor does great. So now that we're talking about that, let me cut in and say the proper way to prime this Subaru, at least the way that it worked for me, from a dead, no oil, nothing in this car, to having oil pressure really quickly. The simplest way, and I thank Get a Dom Tuning, and I thank Killer B for their form post, and of course everybody else, but here's the simple thing. Fill your car up with oil like you're supposed to. Check your dipstick, make sure everything's good. Get the oil filled up. Come down here, and this little silver guy, you can barely see, that is your crank position sensor. Pull that guy out because you don't want the engine firing. That controls the ignition. Make sure there are no spark plugs or coils or anything in the cylinders, so both sides, no spark plugs. That basically allows the pistons to move freely without having compression on them. Smart, right? Number two, and the thing that actually made it work, people say to fill your oil filter, put it in the car, and it will suck up oil. Negative. Does not work because you have oil or air in the system. You need to get the air out. So what you do is you grab yourself a container, you go underneath the car, you remove or don't put in the oil filter like I did. You remove the oil filter, you leave it open, you go in there, you crank the car, 15 seconds later, bam, oil comes out the oil filter area into your container. You then, I did this, don't really know which one's better or not. I filled my oil filter with oil, put it back on, screwed it on, went back into the car, bam, oil pressure started reading after about 20 seconds of cranking. That was 10 seconds off, 10 seconds on, 10 seconds then off, then 10 seconds again, and about 20 seconds later I saw oil pressure rise up. Now as you can see, the line is still kind of empty because there's air bubbles coming through. That will happen as it clear out as the engine starts to run. So we have oil pressure, not bad, pretty easy. Was very worried, didn't want to mess up any of the metal on metal contact things, but we're good to go. So put everything back together. Spark plugs are now in, coils are now in, crank sensor is now plugged in. Fuel pressure was good. I messed up a little bit in these fuel pressure lines. I guess I must have loosened up these clamps a little bit when I was taking everything apart, and I forgot to clamp them up, so I sprayed fuel everywhere and let it sit and let it dry out. But those clamps are now good. I have fired the engine over 3 times. That's what the IAG thing says to do. Fire it over 3 times, and then turn it on and start it. Let it run. But I was hearing an odd noise, kind of like a squealing noise. Don't know what it could be. It annoyed the hell out of me and scared the hell out of me. I'm assuming it's just my power steering pump, since that thing was bone dry completely, even in the whole system. So I'm assuming this thing is just squealing from being turned on. So I filled it up again with more this new thing. Maybe this is a little too tight, I'm not sure, but I cranked it over twice and we're good to go. Now I will say that I'm having a slight issue with the link ECU. Also, I shouldn't say an issue, but I had this in the past, and basically when I turned the car off and then turned it back on again, something happens during that accessory to ignition click over. The ECU likes to power on for a split second, and I'm telling like it fires when it powers on, and it fires the coil packs for some reason. When it does that, I can hear a boof. You can hear the residual fuel in the cylinders kind of expanding and blowing if I do an on-off really quickly from the wall wetting effect and all that stuff. So I don't know what's going on with that. I did it before, but I never really turned my car off and then right back on and right back off, back on again. So I'm doing that now because I'm having to go through the process. So I'm letting it sit for a second, but I keep staring at this thing. You guys are probably bored of looking at the engine bay. My bad. There you go. You can spin around and look at me for now. So I have a giant mess to clean up. There's lots of stuff I gotta go through. Stuff on the ground, stuff all over here. I gotta clean all that up. I'm a little afraid to let the car run. I don't know. Just worried about it. I don't think I did anything wrong. I think I hooked everything up properly. My first time doing it, but I'm still a little worried about firing it over. I think I'm gonna do it. I think that power steering pump is the only thing that was making noises. Let's go ahead and start it. Let's do this. Looks like I am scaredy. Where's the keys at? I keep throwing the keys everywhere because I'm so scared of all the noise it's making.